Greetings.
Hello.
And hi. So my name is Liz.
And I am Scandal.
And we have just finished recording and editing a audiobook preview to Cursed by Thomas Wheeler and illustrated by Frank Miller.
Yes.
So this book is an illustrated novel. It's not a graphic novel. It's just
Yep.
a like teen or juvenile novel with some pictures through it.
And I read it.
Yes.
And-
Scandal performed it. It was quite
Woo!
lovely.
Yeah.
Quite lovely. Thank you
I
for
know.
that. I'm very appreciative.
Well, I really like unionizing elders.
So we're eventually going to pull it out a blooper reel and it'll be great. But in the meantime, what did we think of this book so far? So, honestly, fairly standard epic fantasy setup. Like just for the first two chapters, it really started with sensationalism as far as like blood and torture and religious reform. And then it went into, now let's build the backstory of this character. How did we lead up to this bloody mess?
Yep, and so I actually knew, so I read some of the summary, so on the inside cover, this is actually supposed to apparently be an Arthurian legend retelling. So the story of King Arthur in Camelot is supposed to be this story, except it's basically where Thomas Wheeler and Frank Miller went, hey, so what if Arthur never got the sword from the lady in the lake and was never basically picked to be, you know, the king or whatever else, and we're gonna give it to somebody else, and we're gonna see what happens.
And in this case, they have a girl, and if you can tell from the cover, there's, you know, a pulling the sword from the stone sort of visual reference. And so they're basically going, how would the legend be different if the sword were, you know, given to a girl, and a girl became, big quotes here, king?
Right.
Which, not that you can't have a girl king, it just depends on how your monarchy works.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, and the other thing is, too, is of just going, where are they going to go with this? What are the issues they're potentially going to deal with? Because obviously this was just a preview, so I had no idea where they're going to go, and I don't think Lies does either.
So, a lot of times when we do these reviews, we have projections for where it seems like the book is going to go. And I'm not actually familiar with a lot of, with the Arthurian myth, other than the basics. I mean, like, I've seen, you know, the kids' version of the Sword and the Stone, etc.
Yeah,
but,
by Disney.
You're right. But I was just saying, but the whole on, like, thing, I don't know all the details of. I've read I Am Mordred, which is great, and I would totally recommend that book. But that doesn't give you the whole story either. It gives you one side of the story. So as far as this book goes, what threw me off most is that the girl is magical.
Right.
So if you're going, hey, how is it different if Arthur doesn't get the sword and somebody else gets the sword? Then what's that like if they're a girl? Then it seems like it's completely different if the girl is also magically blessed by wild forces called the Hidden.
Oh, my lordy. Well, I have something to tell you real fast. So I was actually giggling over here in a corner. So I actually was involved in a play in my high school where our teacher, who was both the fencing teacher and the theater teacher, he wrote a retelling of the Arthurian legend, basically. So this was very entertaining for me to go through and kind of read and going, okay, what is the setup going to be for this? But I haven't actually read any further. So this is not one of those books that I was like, yes, I want to read this. This was more like, I think both of us were kind of like, we're not really sure where this is going. I also was never really interested in Arthurian legend at all. I hate to say it, it's never been interesting to me, but I'm also that kind of person who, like, for reference, I never really liked basically the series that the Black Cauldron was based off of, which is very much like where these European legends to me they're very, to me, feel very bereft of character. So they're mostly about courtly decorum. Honestly, if you're going back to classical old materials in regards to what courtly love actually was, you know, versus what your duty love was, and, you know, culture and class. And it was more about the great deeds you did rather than who you were as a person. Okay, so I'm curious to see, honestly, how they were going to interpret that into this, but I'm also not really motivated.
So
really.
What did you think about the part you read?
Well, I mean, I was kind of with you of going like, goody, they've put a lot of magic into it, but...
Yeah, that was kind of my feel of going, you've set up like you want to be a dramatic fantasy epic where you've got this aggressive sort of like Spanish Inquisition religious reform with death and torture going on at the beginning.
And going out and killing people who are pagans and believe in the horrible gods, you know, of like, because that's what...
I thought Spanish Inquisition sort of covered that idea.
Pretty much, yeah.
Anyway, it really felt like that. You've got this, you know, priest, you know, with all of their essentially religious, acolyte cronies
And
going, they will
iconography
torture you to get, the
to
badness
purify
out
your
of you.
soul, your
Exactly. To get
soul.
you to
Yep.
confess, and so we can purify you. And that was the beginning of the book, where she's in the middle of this thing, and then she freaks out going, one, Arthur, and two, this is all my fault. And then you go back in time. So
Right.
it felt again like the very solid traditional fantasy epic of, we're going to show you there's going to be war, there's going to be blood, there's going to be conflict, and now let's get to know our protag.
Right. And honestly, I didn't really feel much for the protag.
We didn't really get to know her very much. The most
No.
I liked about her was when she was sort of grumpily teaching someone about herbs in the
Squirrel.
forest. Squirrel.
The cute little kid.
And
Yep.
it was very cute. And then everything just was like, other than that, she's
It
had a
felt very
hard life.
tropey.
She's a very angsty, frustrated, outcast teen. And it was very hard to connect to her. Like, there's clearly been pain in her life, but we're not really connected to the pain in her life. And her mother's a very important figure. We know her father left her. I don't know. I just had a hard time getting into it. I felt like what they wanted you to get into was the fact that it was going to be such a big, epic thing, that it was going to be something that spanned the whole world and involved war.
To me, honestly, also, I felt like a lot of it was going, well, it's a power fantasy, because this is very much, again, that classic setup where I said old Arthurian legend is more about what they're going to go do, about the power and the structure and the going to go do these amazing things and dealing with the problems and the issues, but not really having much character to them.
So basically, if I could summarize, it feels like what it's gonna be is essentially a shonen story.
Yeah, kind of.
What it is about is the fights and the battles and the conquering and the big,
and
powerful display.
Emotions that sort of, like, are out of your control.
Is it Kamehamehas?
Yeah, we're gonna go Goku-ify it up. We're gonna Super Saiyan ourselves quite a lot.
Yeah, so that was all I really got from this one. Like, I like the idea that you're basically doing a let's find out but I don't know if it's really let's find out what would happen if a girl got the sword, or let's find out if Arthur didn't get the sword,
right?
Kind of thing. So that. But anyway, the addition of magic to her felt a little weird and unnecessary for me. And again, it felt like what it was starting out with was going, this is more about the world and the world conflict than it is about the person, the character herself.
Yeah, pretty much. Again,
it doesn't mean it's bad, but that's what it felt like.
I think one of the reasons also this thing feels very rote, and I hate to say this, is just simply because also, so we were, just as an example, we went around trying to actually find, like, the title, just so we could have this as a background detail, and all of it says, soon to be a Netflix original series. As far as I can tell, this series, or this book, actually feels like basically it was made as a part of a deal with Netflix.
Like, it looks like it was released simultaneously as the Netflix series was. And so either it's essentially a novelization of the series to bring people in from two directions, or that basically the book is written more like a script because they knew it was going to be a series as well.
But then that also for me is going to be like, this doesn't sound like this is going to go well because it sounds very typical. Like, it hasn't gone through enough material. They're more focusing on going, we're trying to do both of these and not have them be so contradictory to each other that you won't be able to get into one or the other. Hopefully you will get into both, actually.
That is what it looks like, because every cover of the book did say soon to be a Netflix original series. Like, there was not a cover before that issue. It was a simultaneous thing.
And tone-wise, it really does feel like a setup to basically a typical, I would say typical, either like almost like juvenile novel or young adult novel, and also a typical like fantasy epic TV series without getting too like graphic.
So those are the feels on that. And if you have different thoughts or feels, whether you have read it or whether you just listened to the preview and you have ideas about it, we would love to hear from you. If you did read the whole thing and you're like, you guys were spot on, or God, you guys read the tone totally wrong, we'd love to hear from that as well. And in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to be releasing book previews and reviews 2 to 5 times a week.
Right.
And so there will be plenty of these on here if you want suggested reading material, if you want to find out and get yourself into a new book. Additionally,
or if you want to suggest anything yourself, like, holy cow, yeah.
God, we would be happy to preview a book that someone suggested. This is a very new channel. So if you have something that is relatively new or that is relatively unseen, that you would be like, hey, can you translate this into an audiobook preview? We'd be happy to do that for you.
Right, because especially there are actually plenty of books, even older books. We like older books because so many of them actually don't really have a lot of attention anymore. Like, I've been debating on doing even some older book previews, and I wanted to try to figure out how to do them, but just like wanting to do them because nobody really does audiobooks for them.
It's true.
They just exist as ebooks. That's it.
And there is some of that going on.
If they exist as ebooks.
Anyway, also, If you're still hanging around and we haven't babbled you off into a corner, we have a Let's Play channel, and we would love it if you would check us out there. If you liked our thoughts on things, or you're interested in laughing your butt off because we're hilarious as Let's Players.
We really are. We're the funniest.
We laugh so hard, sometimes we can't continue the game for a bit. Like, I just died, I was laughing too hard. You can check us out. Our channel is featured on this channel. And, in the meantime, take care of yourself.
And also like, comment, and subscribe, so we will see you around, guys.
That would be lovely. If you would just help us, like, get some traction with this idea. Like, comment, subscribe. Help us out there. Thanks.
Bye!